me, and you guys are with me. So, thank you very much, and I apologize for my throat. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. I knew there was a reason that I was not speaking and you were. I really appreciate what you said. I took from that there is nothing to fear when I'm not alone. And we all know isolation is the breeding ground for our addiction, so thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Tom, our next speaker.
Thank you. I'm Tom. I'm an addict.
Hi, Tom.
My biggest fear is I'm going to catch her cold. You know what I mean?
Promise not to cough on you.
And Angie was going to dump the spaghetti on him and hit him with the frying pan. The reason we had her go first, she didn't need to sit and think about it much longer and get more nervous, and I needed to meditate for a while and come up with something to say. I hope it worked. And I would not be as humble as you if I thought I was speaking and they said, no, you're chairing. I'd go, wow, man, I'm a bit self-centered. I want to talk. Because I believe that my higher power will speak through me and give a message of hope to someone, especially when it comes to fear. I kept thinking it was freedom from fear, and I got here and it's nothing to fear. There's a shift there. Nothing? Are you kidding me? And so I know from all the reading I do a lot of reading, and I was reading a book and it said there's only two fears we should really have. And I'm like, only two? And it was fear of falling and fear of loud noises, Well, I got that. But that's all, huh? That fear itself is only in the mind, and it is in the future or in the past, and it has nothing to do with now. And so if you're thinking about something that you're afraid of, it's going to mess you up. And so putting more positive thoughts into my mind with mantras or just self-talk or whatever can free me from that fearful thinking that usually never comes to pass. All that stuff I think is going to happen doesn't really happen. And I've been clean a long time, and so all that means is I've been clean a long time, and stuff will happen. Stuff happens. And I was thinking a little bit about this, and I thought there's been moments in my life, great big huge transformation moments in my life. And when I was there, like let's say I was told I had cancer. Now when you hear that, you're like, whoa, but it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. It's like all of a sudden, okay, something's with me, helping me with this. You see? Yeah, I've had these moments. I guess I should start from the beginning. Looks like I got a lot of time. I don't want to run out for Gil on the tape, but the first fear I really think I had was I was afraid of my father, because he was abusive and he was an addict, and I think I really wanted to love him, but I was afraid of him. And so I was a little doormat, passive, aggressive little kid. And I wasn't allowed to express my feelings, be angry. He's the only one who could be angry. Mom kept getting, black eyes, and it was like, oh yeah, she probably really did bump the door again. It was that kind of stuff, right? And so I was afraid of anger. I was afraid of your anger and afraid of mine. So I became the little, perfect kid. And I did everything really well. Straight A's, sports, I was everything. Trying to, do you approve of me now? Kind of stuff. I don't know why I'm thinking of this, but I better not even say what I'm thinking. Is that okay?
I think you better.
Well, people talk about their first addiction being food. I think I found my dick at about 5. And is that okay? and maybe 4. And I used to escape with that. I knew that would get Eddie. I always want to get Eddie on the tape. And I used to, I remember one night, doing my thing, about 6 years old, and my dad came in just crazy and grabbed a rifle and put it in his mouth and was pulling on it. God, I can't remember. I believe I'm remembering this kind of stuff. And my mom and I stopped him, and stuff like that would happen a lot. So all that means is I got more work to do, right? I mean, if your parents threw cocktail parties and had a yacht or something, or if you were locked in closets and burnt with cigarettes, all it means is you're still sick, either way. Same disease, sick. I've known people that are crazy that didn't have a lot of terrible upbringing, none at all. So it doesn't really matter, but if you've been locked in closets and burned with cigarettes and stuff like that, you just got more work to do. And it may be more difficult to get through the fear and find the freedom that comes from working the steps. And that's where I found freedom from fear, is through the steps and through loving other people. So I grew up a fearful little boy, and one day I go to the pool hall, and oh man, I waited as long as I could. And when I went to the pool hall, I started, I drank alcohol, smoked cigarettes, had sex, smoked dope, and took speed, all within a few weeks. And I was thinking, why didn't I do this the whole time? It was beautiful, it was wonderful, and it was like I'm hanging out with the beautiful people, right? The kind that'll steal your money, rip you off. And so I was, I thought they were beautiful, and everybody told me don't hang around those guys. Well, I became one of those guys fast, and I didn't go to school, and I, started selling drugs, and within 3 years of my using, I was 19 years old, and it was Vietnam. Talk about fear. And the draft. I'm old, so the draft was still in effect. And, you had to kind of do something about that. But I'm an addict. I kept putting it off. And there was this impending doom of this draft coming up. And so I didn't do anything except stay loaded. And I went, to induction, and then, I went to Alaska because I got in trouble, and came back with a bunch of money and 7 days. My dad handed me my 7 days to induction into the Marines, of all things. Now, I was kind of lazy, fat. My hair was long and beautiful. I just didn't want to get it cut. It was so pretty. It was beautiful. And I didn't want to do push-ups or anything, kill anybody. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. So I bought a bunch of dope with the money, and I stayed up for the better part of that week. And again, this was a big turning point in my life. What am I going to do? Should I go? What do you do? And there was just a whole lot going on. And I remember that night I took a bunch of speed and acid and 8 hash brownies, and there was this great big yellow dice turning, and it was like a road map. Remember those little 8 balls you used to turn over, and it was going like that, and it was yellow, and it had a road map of my life. Oh, you could go here, or you could go here, and I'd shut my eyes and it'd still be there, and I'd open it. It was, wow, it was my life was going to turn on this decision. So I don't know why I'm telling this story, but when I was a kid, my uncle owned a slaughterhouse, and the men took me over there and showed me how to hit a cow with a sledgehammer and kill it, and then gut it and, do all that. Slaughtered a cow. And man, I was queasy anyway, and that left an impression on me. So I take the last 2 hits of what they called mescaline, but it was LSD, and walked into the induction center, not knowing what I'm going to do. I've been up for a week, Pretty much. And because, I tried to sleep on that eating hash, and it felt like I was a foot above the bed. I couldn't sleep. And a lot of fun that was. And so as I'm in there and I'm up front, and there's a bunch of men behind me, and there was a officer, I guess, and he was talking about, okay, and all of a sudden, he looked like Porky the Pig, and it colors on his face, and I'm like, oh my God, and these guys behind me were asking these questions like, hey, when do we get our hair cut? And he goes, hour and a half, and I'm like, whoa. Hey, do we get to take our toothbrush? And I thought, who are these guys? So I turned around to look at the men behind me. There was probably 70 men there. And all I saw was cow heads. I saw all cow heads. And I go, okay, I got it. And I made my decision right then and there. I get it. They're going to get slaughtered. I'm not going. I'm not going. And so drug-induced decision. And so I went to the doctor, and he said, do this. And I'm standing there doing this. I told him, I got LSD. I'll put it in the water, He said, I've heard that one. And and I didn't realize what I was doing. And he goes, you're 1A, because I could pull a trigger. And I'm like, that really pissed me off. So now I was sure to leave. So I shoved all of my papers into my coat, and I walked out. And I walked by signs that said 10 years, 10,000 or both for removal of any papers from this facility. And I was fearful as I walked. I felt like someone was just going to grab me. But I had made my decision, and it resonated real deep within me, you know what I mean? And when I hit, the outside, it just hit me. I made the right decision, and then I went and burnt my draft card and those papers, and they kind of caught up with me 30 days later, and I went back and smoked 6 joints, and this guy locked himself in the stall and puked on himself, and while that commotion was going on, I left with the copies to all my papers. So now I'm dodging the draft, living in fear of them coming to get me, and one day a guy I'm with jumps out of the car and grabs an old lady's purse and jumps back in the car and says, go. And I'm like, whoa. So I went, and it turned out to be an aunt of one of our dope fiend buddies who did overdose and die a few years later. But there was $300 in the purse, and I took half the money. And a couple weeks later, he goes, come on, let's go do that again. And I said, no, I'm never going to do that again. He goes, why not? You're implicated. And I did it again. I did it 18 times. And I was 19 and a half years old, dodging the draft, stealing old ladies' purses, man. And one of them got a broken arm, and she had 6 cents in her purse, and I could hear her screaming, give me back my purse. And I could hear that. A lot of times I could hear that, and I hated myself. And every time I saw an old lady, I got fear, and I remembered. And so I got arrested and was guilty of 20 of the 22 felonies they charged me with, and I had the impending doom of failure to report for induction, federal offense hanging. And I'm a little fat white boy in Rocky Butte jail, getting an education, not the kind you want to get. Asking the convicts, like, what do you think will happen to me? Oh, man, first time you'll probably only get 7.5 years, And so one more time, the induction guy comes down and tries to make a deal. But unbeknownst to me, my dad and my lawyer had worked a deal. But nobody told me. My thinking was it was their fault. I'm in here anyway. They made me do it. And so I ended up getting really upset about that and telling them, no, I'm staying in jail. Thought I was all cool and honorable. But the truth is, I knew what I'd done was wrong, man. And I knew I needed to pay for it. And I don't know why I knew that, but I knew I needed to take, the consequences for my behavior. So as weird as it worked out, I ended up getting probation, and it's a long story, but I used for 15 more years after that. And I went in and out of jail about 15 more times, and maybe 12. Something like that. And so my life got worse. And the fear for me was that the guy wouldn't come back with good dope, you know, or he wouldn't come back at all. I didn't care about anything beyond that. And it got ugly. And so one day, you know, I guess I had a couple drunk drive-ins, 2 hit and runs, and an attempt to elude in a week. It was a normal week. It just happened that I got caught. And so I got sent to my first meeting in 1977, and it was an AA meeting. And then I thought that was nice that they had somewhere to go, and I wasn't like any of them. And then I ended up going to treatment in 1979. I went to my first NA meeting. I went to SWRF here in Southern Washington. And so I ended up, you know, getting a seed planted. There were men and women, people that were trying to help me, that saw something in me that I couldn't see. And I thought my problem was, you know, alcohol, and so I didn't drink, but I used. And I used for about 4 or 5 more years. And I ended up, well, reading some inspirational books, and I dreamed up a house. And I went there in a dream, and we moved into this house, Nancy and I. And it was a change. I always feared change, but this was a good change, and it was a nice place. And we ended up getting clean in that house. I went to a meeting one night. She went with me. She smoked a joint on the way to the meeting. I didn't, because I couldn't. I could only wait till after the meeting. I couldn't make it through one day. And that night, some guy said to me, you know, what, how are you doing? I said, good. He goes, I don't know if it's you or the weed that's good. You know, you've never given up. Why don't you try nothing? Why don't you try giving up everything? Just for 60 days, he said, because you can go back to it after that, but you've never tried that. And I went, wow, 60 sounded so much better than 90. And it was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. You know, I'll do it. And so they asked, how's the wife? You know, and she goes, I'm an addict too. I'm going to do it too. And I was like, oh, wow, you know. And curiously enough, I never got clean until she did. And that's why still to this day, I have one more day clean than Nancy. She smoked a joint on the way to the meeting. I talked to her on the way up here. I remember Angie. We used to have this little sports car, a little Fiat, and we'd give Angie a ride and stick her in the back, you know. It's really tight in there for anybody. And then we'd give her some change for bus money. And I thought, she ain't got a chance. We won't see her again. You know, that shows you what I know. So now I'm clean, and it's like, oh my God, all the fears and all the realities started to come through. And, you know, basically, fear that I'm not good enough, that I'll never be good enough, and that, you know, whatever it is I have, I'm going to lose, and I'll never get what I want, you know, that kind of thinking was the kind of fear that I lived with. And so the early days of recovery were pretty cool. I just went to meetings. That's all I did, meetings, 10 meetings a week, and talked in all of them right out the side of my neck for a long time. Eddie and I used to both do that. Sorry, Eddie, you're just sitting too close. I'm just going to get you every time. And, you know, Narcotics Anonymous in 1984 was just starting to grow really fast. And we came in at a time where there was a bunch of cliques going on and people getting pissed off and starting new meetings. And it grew at the rate of about 200% per 6 months. And we used to have pretty big meetings, and a few of them, and then we had a whole lot of meetings without a lot of people in them. I didn't know if that was better or not, but whatever. And so, you know, I was... You know, I had been to meetings for all those years after treatment and like that, but I could not use. So I had knowledge, but I didn't have any experience. So once I got clean, finally quit using everything, I was able to kind of take off, hit the ground running. I already knew stuff. Now I was doing that. And so it helped me. So I was able to sponsor a guy when I had 9 months, and he's got 25 years. And stuff like that. So it was really good for me. Somehow I got to go to the jail when I had just a little over a year for the other program. Back then, we went to both meetings, and they were clamoring for, they wanted an NA meeting in there. So I became the liaison for the Clackamas County Jail, and I used to call them up and tell them what I thought of them. And you're all a bunch of them, and your daughter, and I just go on, and so I became the liaison, and for that jail that I was in a dozen times, and we got it all set up, and I remember I used to be in there, and I'd watch the guard bang this desk, and the door would open, and I remember being cuffed on the floor, going, God, I wish I could do that. I wish I could get out of here. The fear of what's going to happen to me this time, and when do I get to go to court, and what are the charges, and what day is it? Which jail is this? That's the kind of fear that an addict that abuses lived, at least me. And so I helped set this meeting up, and Larry was the liaison from the jail, and finally my sponsor and I were going to go in Thursday night, 7:30, and he goes, it sure is nice getting a call from you nowadays, not like it used to be. And I said, Larry, that was you? He used to answer the phone when I'd call him up. And so now I'd come full circle to, and he remembered 20 years before. So then that first jail meeting, first contact meeting for Narcotics Anonymous in Oregon, I banged that desk and the door opened. There it was. It was like a dream or a wish come true. So, oh man, so I started doing the jails, and in about 2.5 years clean, for some unknown reason, we took in these young girls, and they were just like Angie, bad attitude, kind of nasty, and pretty mean. And had the high-heeled boot, leather jacket attitude, and they were little girls that had been abused, man. They were abused in every way you could be, and mostly the worst thing was the neglect. They'd all been sexually abused, every one of them. And so we have them living in our home. We got 2.5 years. We take them to meetings. I do. I got 2 or 3 different young little girls, and I'm chasing them. They run, they steal stuff, they're huffing deodorant in our house, all kinds of stuff. So again, I got an education in Anon type stuff, the detachment, release. I fell in love with every one of them, man. And for 5 years we did that. And these girls, they'd be home on a snow day or a holiday, and then we'd take them to treatment at night, or during the day, and then meetings at night and stuff. And so, it was like crisis intervention 24/7. I mean, the wife and I didn't really spend any time talking about anything but the kids, and they'd run. She'd find them she'd chase them down, find them at the bus station and stuff like that. It was amazing. And also what I learned from her was unconditional love. She has a natural ability to give. And I learned it from her, and it was beautiful. And I watched her. For instance, one of the girls ran and took another girl with her, and I think the other girl was 15. Our girl was 17 or something. They went downtown, and they wanted cigarettes and candy, so she was teaching the 15-year-old how to turn a trick in the backseat of a car for $10 so they could get some candy and cigarettes, which is all that she knew. And so when they got picked up, I was kind of upset with her. And my wife buys her a new dress. And I'm like, what's up with that? And she said, well, it was her clothing allotment. She's allowed that, and it's her right. So she should get a dress. But the look on that girl's face was, you bought me a dress? Thought you were going to hit me. hate me. And so I learned how to give love, man, without expecting anything to come back in return. And I was a giver of love now. And so after 5 years of doing that, we were crazy. And sleep was something, I got more sleep last night, than I used to get. And that wasn't much. But my sponsor came to me and he said, I had about 8 years clean now, and he goes, how many of them purses did you steal? And I said, 18. He said, how many girls have lived with you? 18. And he said, do you think that you're going to try to help these girls for the rest of your life, that you'll be there for them no matter what? I said, you know I am. He said, well, maybe you can get some relief for you, finally, from those old ladies, man. And I started to, and I got some relief. And it helped, because if I'd have known I was doing that, it wouldn't have worked. I would have screwed it up. And I didn't even know. And all I'd done is make that 8-step list and became willing. And God provided a way for me to make amends for me. And to women in general, which is something I still do today. I'm lucky, I'm blessed that I get to help a lot of women. I have a lot of women in recovery in my life, and I'm safe and I'm cool. I only screwed up once with a girl with 16 months. Hopefully I'll talk about that. That's kind of exciting. So I forgot where I was and I started thinking about her. Then my sponsor went out, got loaded, Perry, at 9 years, and I had 8 years. And he came back for a couple of years, but he didn't really do the deal. His life didn't become an open book to one man. He never really did that with a sponsor. So important to do. And he was shot and killed. I was the last one to see him. And it was difficult, And then I found out I had the hepatitis C. Oh, now we're going. And then we had about 14, almost 15 years, and Nancy finally got tired of me. We were loaded for 10 years and clean for almost 15, and it was she wasn't the number one priority. It was sponsees, golf, meetings, whatever, not her. And she wasn't asking much, and I was unwilling, I guess, to give it to her. So we separated at God, it's been 10 years, and that was difficult. And I had a lot of fear. I got a little one-room apartment near where I work, and I had a lot of fear about, I haven't grown up yet. I haven't written a check that's legal, ever. I didn't do all the calling of the insurance and taking care of the business. She did that. I needed to be controlled. She needed to control somebody. We were a match. But my fear was, that I couldn't face life. No, and I used to think that it was Tom and Nancy, and that I wouldn't be able to stay clean without her or something like that, But I soon realized it was God and Tom. It was God and Tom, and in that order. And so I was able to start taking care of my responsibilities, and I grew up at about the age of 49, 50, and started living and learning how to live with me and be with me and be calm and enjoy that. Take myself to dinner and a movie, and I really got right with me. And of course, one of them NA girls chased me down, and I wasn't going to give in, but she was pretty hot. And Jeanette and I started dating after, I don't know, a couple years, and that was beautiful. And life was good. And then, they told me I had the cancer, and that was prostate cancer, and that was almost 10 years ago. Well, no, wait a minute, 9, 51, whatever. And I was like, oh, you're going to do what to me? And so I didn't want to, but I did. So I had surgery, and they figured they got it all. It was real nice to have, Jeanette with me through that. She helped me tremendously with all of that stuff that brings about. And so life was good. And then Jeanette decided that she wasn't number one either after 3.5, 4 years. It's like, same complaint. I wonder what's wrong with them two.
They've been talking.
Yeah, they do. They talk. They love each other. They're friends now. And so, you know, I had looked at my part in the first one, and worked the steps really hard with a group of guys, and I saw my part, and it was hard to look at the fact that I was unwilling to give this beautiful woman what she wanted, man. And so I did it again with the next one, and so we split up, and I started getting really, really sick, and you know, I just kind of thought it was my liver. I'm a guy, I didn't go to doctor enough, and by the time I'd go there I felt better, and I would get chills, fevers, sweats, fatigue. It was really bad. Finally it just hit me so hard that I had it for 4 months. I had a fever every day, and you know, it was like you know, I was so sick I wanted to die, and they couldn't find out what was wrong with me, and they said that it was lymphoma. And I remember hearing that, and I remember that moment, looking at my wife. Ex-wife was there with me, and you know, it's one of those moments that you just don't forget. Lymphoma? Whoa. Can I go till 12, Gil? Okay, good. And so what happened was, I got a second opinion, and they confirmed it. But during this time, I felt a presence of something on my right side with me. It was really weird, and I was cool. I thought, am I numb? But I had a prayer. I said, you know, God, I don't mind being with you. I know I'm not too young, too pretty, too cool to go, and I know life's eternal. However, I just wanted more time to learn more about this love I've been given, and to get closer to you, because, man, when you get sick, people love you. And I was hearing from a lot of people, man. And so I was like, oh, okay. And they did a biopsy on my neck, took out a lymph node, and it turned out it wasn't cancer. It was like, but they still didn't know what it was. And they found out eventually that it was tuberculosis, a very rare form that's not even in the textbooks anymore. And I've never been so happy to have TB, you know. And so it was like, you know, there's a treatment for that. It was long and it was difficult, but it worked. And so I had been so sick for so long that I didn't realize I was depressed. I mean, how can you? I couldn't even function. I had 105 a lot of days, fever, every day, all day. And so this pretty girl kissed me, told me she loved me and wanted to be with me. She was pretty, Eddie, really. And I knew she was crazy, but you know what? I lost my mind, and I didn't realize I was depressed, and I focused it on her. She immediately said no, and then came back and said, yeah, and I said, huh? And no, yeah. And then, you know, it was insanity at best. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because I want to tell you how I walked through that, and that I was willing to do anything to get out of that. Because I would tell the lady at Starbucks, you know, how you doing? This girl, you know, and she'd give me the coffee. I think you're going to be okay, you know. I was like, I told everybody. I was worrisome. And so, you know, I was a danger to myself and anybody around me, really. But, so what did I do? You know, the solution is spiritual here. And so I started meditating every day for an hour. I started walking every day for an hour. I allowed myself to think about her for that hour that I walked, but I thought about her and I dreamed about her anyway. And I was obsessed. Now, this wasn't love. It was obsession. I'd asked to learn about love, but this wasn't it. This was crazy, man. And so, as I did a 56-page 4-step on my sexual inventory and was put on no contact with that girl, Brenda would grab my phone. Who are you talking to? And I'd go, it's my sponsor. You want to say hi to Jackie? You know, and so I went to therapy, and I ran into some people that do some spiritual stuff. I can't explain it a whole lot more than that, but we work with energy, and it was like, whoa, man. All of a sudden, my whole life started changing, and the answer to my prayer was coming, because it's all about love. I started reading every night, too. Didn't watch TV anymore, just read. And everything I read was about love. It was about forgiveness. It was about non-judgment. How if you can forgive Eddie, you can forgive yourself. If you can love someone, you can love yourself. Or either way. Love yourself, love someone else. And so I started to learn about love for real. And it was beautiful. And as soon as the depression lifted and all the treatment stuff kind of got out of me, the obsession was gone, and I was cool. And I went to a barbecue one day that I didn't want to go to, and there was another girl, very beautiful, very cool, very healthy. And we were struck, and I can't believe I'm talking about this. 6 months after that, she called it off, and we've been friends for a year and a half. And now I'm on my 37th day of no contact with her. So there you go. Learn. And it's okay, because this seemed like love, but it appears to be unrequited love. So I'm learning about love. And, I wasn't specific with my prayer. I'm learning about love, and it's good for me. It's good for me. I still meditate a lot. I still work with the energy workers, we'll call them, and I still work the steps. I go to the jail regular. I still give and receive love, because that is the solution to any kind of fear. Because if you're laughing, you can't be in fear. If you're loving and really feeling the divine, authentic love that has no opposite, it's not the kind of selfish love, it's selfless love. And that will eliminate fear when I'm feeling love. You just can't be afraid if you feel the beauty and the energy of love. And you can feel it around here. As soon as I opened up and allowed this love in to all of my cells in my body, it seems like I started attracting more and more and more of it. And I was able to change my thinking from mostly fearful, negative thinking to a more positive sort of thought. Because in my mind, I read a lot. And it says, a lot of the stuff I read talks about these neurons and the neurotransmitters and the synapses and all this. And when you think negative thought or a fearful thought, it just runs with it like a train, and it fires, and it's used to that, and it goes with that. And so fearful thinking creates more fearful thinking and manifests negative events in your life. And so by changing that to a more positive thought, it also, neurons start to build and synapses occurs, and you create and manifest more positive things in your life. And it's just, I'm a great example of that, because I walk without fear. I mean, and having faced death, the big one, afraid to die. I'm not. When I was 24 years old, I flew off a cliff and should have died, but I didn't. And it was like, no, it's not time. You're not done. And so what I believe is that I'm here to sort of fulfill some sort of mission of service, basically, to man and women, and to complete that agreement. And it involves laying in the gutter, shooting dope, looking down on people, and being a loser, to coming up with 25 years, big-time speaker, right? This is big shit. And a giver of love, and to be able to help people and therefore help myself, and to make the world, the community, the world, the universe a better place. And what an amazing thing to be able to do from the possibility of an addict getting clean and doing something like that. It's not me. I couldn't do any of this. But think of all the people we've known that aren't even here, and we can't remember their names, or the people that didn't make it, or the people that died, or the people that are going to go out, or whatever. I mean, oh my God, the odds on something like that happening can only be done, I think, with with the positive thought. I used to think I was going to end up in county jails and knock over telephone poles. And that's exactly what happened. And I came here and I started thinking, I can be like that guy. I can be the guy with 25 years asked to speak. Whoa. And how'd that happen? It happened by changing my thinking. And when I go to meetings, and I still go to a lot of meetings, we have positive, usually affirmations, you know. Yeah, there's some dickheads, but you know what I mean. And sorry, I didn't mean you, you know. Did you think it was you? It's anyway, the idea is that by getting together and bringing our energy together and telling each other and loving each other, man, we can heal. We can heal and we can be free from fear. The topic was nothing to fear. I really have nothing to fear unless I think. I think and I get fear. If I can be free from thinking, I'm free from fear. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to both of our speakers. There is a big reason that I chaired and didn't speak. Love is the antidote to fear, and if you don't know how to get from fear to love, the 12 steps will tell you. With that, I'd like to ask if there's anybody in the room with less than 30 days clean, if you'd raise your hand. 1, 2. Thank you. Anybody with 21 days or less? Anyone with 7 days or less? All right, would the gentleman in the yellow shirt like to lead us in the third step prayer? You willing? Right on.